Okay. Um, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson has said, if Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine can be invited by Nancy Pelosi to speak in the House chamber, then why can't Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel come and plead his case and the need of support for Israel? What are your thoughts on allowing Benjamin Netanyahu to speak to Congress?
Of course, constitutionally, each house has the right to invite whoever they want. And Benjamin Netanyahu spoke once before to Congress. I know, I was there. I was sitting in the front row next to Elie Wiesel, and next to Prime Minister Netanyahu's wife. So I think he should be allowed to make his case. And especially now that President Biden announced that there might be a change in policy toward Israel because of a terrible mistake that Israel made. It was a terrible, terrible mistake, but it was an honest mistake. They were not intending to kill people from the World Kitchen. Their friends, the people from the World Kitchen, helped Israelis. It's the only humanitarian group that is not anti-Israel. Doctors Without Borders is a Hamas front. They operate out of hospitals, and they work with Hamas. UNRWA is a Hamas front. The Red Cross is biased against Israel. The only humanitarian group that's not biased against Israel is World Kitchen. So there's no conceivable reason why Israel should ever have bombed. That was a terrible mistake. But if you listen to CNN, which has been horrible on this issue, it's become kind of Hamas central. If you listen to CNN, they're trying to create a moral equivalence between what Hamas did on October 7th, rapes, beheadings, murders, burning people alive, and an honest mistake that Israel made. Speaking of burning people alive, I was just recently in Israel. I met with the prime minister twice. I met with the president, met with the head of the Mossad, met with the heads of the military. And I was taken to the house where a woman who was a Canadian named Vivian Silver, who was a peace activist, she would go every day to the border of Gaza and bring Gazans into Israel and take them to the hospital at her own expense. She ended up being burned alive in her safe room, probably by the very people she took to the hospitals, because they went directly to her house. They knew exactly where her safe room was, and they burned her to death alive. And to make any comparisons between what Hamas did, the rapes, the beheadings, the murder of children, the taking of hostages, and an honest accident of exactly the same kind the United States made. On the way out of Afghanistan, a drone hit somebody who everybody thought was probably a terrorist. He wasn't. He was innocent, and his whole family was killed. The United States apologized, paid some compensation. It was a one-day story. But with CNN, it's an everyday story, and it becomes an opportunity for President Biden to threaten to change policies toward Israel. A big mistake, and it's going to cost him the election if he makes that mistake. I have to tell you, if Biden turns against Israel, he is going to lose this election because Michigan, it involves a couple of 100,000 people. They have nowhere to go. The Arabs and the Muslims, what, they're going to vote for Trump? They're not going to vote for Trump. But Zionists, people who support Israel, Jewish voters, we have someplace to go. We could vote for Trump. We could vote for Bobby Kennedy. And our votes are at risk. And I can tell you, I did a piece in the Wall Street Journal the other day, really quoting a statement that the late Joe Senator
Lieberman
and I wrote together just hours before he died, in which we said, don't take our vote for granted. And you can't take our vote for granted. I'm not sure. For the first time in any presidential election since 1960, when I voted for John Kennedy, first time since 1960, we're talking 64 years, first time ever, I don't know who I'm going to vote for in this election.
Interesting.
I have an open mind.
Yeah, I saw yesterday, this was heartbreaking. One of the hostages, a beautiful Israeli girl, she said, all of the young women are being sexually assaulted, the remaining hostages. And she gave details that I don't want to share in this video, but it was just absolutely heartbreaking. Tell me about your book, War on the Jews and How to Get Rid of Hamas. Can it actually be done? Is it just an idea that will live on long past this war? What are your thoughts?
No, it's just like Nazism and the fascism of Japan. When we defeated Germany and we defeated the Nazis and we defeated the imperial armies, we defeated Nazism as a theory and we defeated fascism. There are still a few Nazis left in Germany. There are still a few fascists left in Japan, but the ideology was destroyed along with the leaders. And I think if Hamas has soundly defeated the people of Gaza, the innocent ones, there are many in Gaza who aren't innocent. Let's be very clear about that. Some of the people who came over after Hamas did participated in the rapes and the murders. Some of the people allow their homes to be used as places to store rockets. They allow themselves to be used for human shields. These are not innocent people, but there are some innocent people in Gaza. I don't know what the percentage is. Some 70% supported the massacres that happened on October 7th. Are they innocent? Well, they may be innocent technically, but I'm not shedding any tears for people who rooted for the Hamas murders. Let them pay a price for their ideology as well. And so, it's a complex issue, but Israel must be allowed to defeat Hamas. If it's not, it's coming to a theater near you. And I think Putin learned that lesson. It literally came to a theater near him in Moscow. No, it wasn't Hamas, but who put the idea in the heads of terrorists? It was all Palestinian terrorists, started in large part with the Olympic murders of 11 Israeli athletes at the Olympics, which was praised by many people. And what happened on October 7th was praised on October 8th by the National Lawyers Guild, by 13 groups at Harvard, including Amnesty International. And so what we have is encouragement of more terrorism by Hamas, because if Hamas is allowed to emerge from this intact, A, its ideology will continue, and B, its barbarism will continue. I think if Hamas is soundly defeated and Qatar and the United States and the European Union do what was done in Germany and Japan after the Second World War, the Marshall Plan, rebuilding the country, showing the people of Gaza that they could be Singapore in the Mediterranean. And they could have been starting in 2005, but instead they voted for Hamas. Then Hamas murdered the Palestinian Authority leaders and turned them into an open-air prison. Yes, it is an open-air prison, but not the responsibility of Israel. The reason for that is Hamas. Hamas had all the money. The same thing is true with the alleged famine. There's no famine in Gaza. There is hunger. People aren't getting 3 meals a day. They're getting 2 or 1 meal a day. And to the extent there is hunger, it's because Hamas is stealing the food. We know that Hamas has enormous amounts of resources, barrels of grain that they're keeping from the people, just the way they're keeping the tunnels from being used by people to protect themselves. In Israel, everybody has access to a shelter. In Gaza, only Hamas has access to shelters. They deny shelter and they deny food and they deny medicine to the average person because they want Gazans to die. The more Gazans die, the more Israel suffers in the court of public opinion. That's how screwed up the world has become.
Yeah, you're right. This is about a PR war more than an actual war, and they're getting lots and lots of sympathy that way, to the extent that now Iran is threatening some kind of massive attack on Israel in the next 48 hours. We're hoping and praying that that is a threat and not something that actually happens. Alan, I know you're very busy. I'm going to put a link to War on the Jews down below. Thank you so much for coming on, keeping up to date on all of these different trials and the situation in Israel. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.